So I noticed that a few creators, namely Laserbolt, was making their rounds of pushing out some pretty rushed content and giving some pretty mediocre or just straight up wrong information. So in this video, I'm going to not only, as usual, correct their bad rush misinformation, but actually give you 10 tips that I wish I knew sooner that is going to be actual usable information. Unlike most, I'm actually in the hard mode as I've completed all the base story, and there's some usable tips that they miss for obvious reasons that can really help your playthrough. So in this video, I'm going to help you out with some awesome tips. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's dive right on into this video. Alright, first things first, let's jump onto the Descendant and let's give you guys a little tips on some mods and defense that's going to be very useful. One thing that I noticed a lot of players struggle with early is facing off against some of the big bosses, the Intercept bosses and things like that, and one of the reasons for that is improper modding. Now this isn't going to be a modding video. I'm gonna have a tip for modding coming up in just a second, but I do want to show you guys a few things that you should consider using as you're progressing through the story. First things first, you should have a leveled weapon. Something like a short sword, as you see here, actually gives me more mod capacity. I'm at 22 out of 78. When I don't have it equipped, this is 22 out of 70. So you actually get a lot of different benefit when you have this slotted in with a leveled up weapon. There's multiple weapons. As you can see here, you have access to quite a few. I like the short sword, but use whatever you want, but make sure you have that equipped. Second, polygenic antibody. What this does is this going to give you all attribute resistance. This is going to be a generally good one to slot in because no matter what is thrown at you as you're progressing through the story, you're going to have resistances to everything. You'll be surprised just how useful this is because it's going to help you just stay alive. There's been many times where I was just on 1 HP and if I didn't have these kind of resistances, I would have 100% died and bricked the run. I know a lot of people don't like building defense, just build it. It's not going to take that much shards. It's actually really good. Finally, whenever you're going into a void intercept boss, I highly recommend that you get the antibody of that specific type. Unless your damage is like extremely high, you're going to be in there just fighting for a long time and you could die really easy. Once again, having the electric antibody or whatever antibody of the enemy that you're facing off against can be really good. When facing the Hanged Man, for example, he does electric attribute. That's why I have electric attribute slotted in. So just make sure you have that resistance, and then obviously for your weapon you want to put something that he's weak against. So he's very weak against poison, so maybe something that gives poison based on the percent of your attack. Get some resistances, that's going to help you. If you're confused about defense or HP, it doesn't really matter too much. Just having those resistances is going to be enough to keep you alive through most of the content. Just don't stand in front of AoEs. For my next tip, we have a crafting tip. One thing that is very important is to always have these things going off a cooldown. As you can see, I have phase exchangers, ion accelerators, precision ion accelerators, just a lot of different things. And each of these individual things give you a ton of benefit, mainly with different resources that's going to be usable in the future. Phase exchangers are one of them that I use very consistently, and you're going to be using a lot of because this is going to transfer weapon levels of certain weapons to other weapons so that you can level weapons that are good. These things have a timer. They're not insanely long, but ultimately you don't want to be in a situation where you need them and you're just sitting in base waiting for them to be built. You're progressing through the story right now, so you may as well just come over here and click on them and get the building going. Personally, before I leave town, I always get the phase exchanger X4 to always keep going because this is going to take 10 minutes, but these exchangers are going to be the thing that transfer weapons over, and this is going to be the most important in my opinion. Make a habit of doing this, always have something going on cooldown, and just keep building. Next, when it comes to Fervor shards, these are the shards you use to pretty much level up your mods. One thing that's super important is that you have the ability to attain them. If you're having a hard time maintaining those shards, one really cool way to do things is going to dismantle them, and you can dismantle duplicates of modules. Now, I don't have that available because I already dismantled it for a previous video, but once you come to this menu, you'll hold shift, it will select all your dupes, and then you can dismantle them and give yourself a ton of shards. As you can see here, I have 300,000 with like 6 million gold almost. That's because I always extract extras and then I'm not spending my shards too wildly. This is another great tip that's gonna help you so that you can actually level up some of those mods that we talked about a second ago so that you can actually complete the content because you will be gatekept by some of the stronger bosses. I do have one more crafting tip because I noticed a lot of players have asked this. How do I get a certain Descendant? Well, for me personally, the easiest way to do this is go to the individual Descendant and then press F on the information because this will show you the acquisition information of that individual item. So in order to get his ultimate codes, you'll need to go to Vespers. This is where I would specifically farm for him, so I need to go face off against a Hard Obstructor. In order to do that, you're going to have to beat the story, but ultimately this is going to be the way for you to pretty much find whatever you want, and then you can press G if you want to start tracking it, because again, you want this specific Descendant, so make sure you're tracking it correctly. Next, let's talk about mastery ranking and how to mastery rank up more efficiently. So the first things first is mastery ranking is super big because it gives you some Descendant capacity for your modules, same for your weapons, and it gives you more equipment slots. This is going to give you storage as well and consumable energy, a lot of different things that you can get. That's always beautiful. That's a pretty straightforward thing. I think most of you know that. Now if you'll notice, I'm only mastery rank 10, and that's for a very good reason, and that's because I do not level up a lot of different Descendants yet, because I've been focused on the story, which is I think is another tip. You should focus on the story, but if you're looking to mastery rank things faster, the way to do it is by simply leveling up Descendants and completing like the mastery of the individual weapon. So you can see I only have 2 Descendants, Bunny and Mr. Ajax, and once I hit level 40 with Bunny, I'm just going to go down the list and just get every single Descendant and keep leveling them, and then by the time you see like my next video, my mastery rank will be much higher because I'm taking the time to actually level them once I've gotten to the end game where I can farm them more efficiently. Once again, my pro efficiency with my weapons are really high, so again I was able to get a little bit out of my mastery ranks. Some of you are probably higher because you leveled multiple characters. Nothing wrong with that, I like to point out, but just make sure you know that once you get to the end game and you're actively able to farm the Descendants because you're not locked behind hard mode, this is going to be the best time to actually start grinding your mastery rank because of ease of access. So my next tip is going to be around the Void Intercept battles. As you can see on screen now, I've completed all the Void Intercept battles and going to be starting to move on to the hard modes. One thing to note is there's a few of them that's actually pretty tough to deal with that I just want to talk about quickly just to give you my thoughts about them. So obviously the hardest one that I think is going to be gatekeeping a lot of players is going to be Dead Bride. Dead Bride is a very strong one because she has her snow globe that does a lot of AoE damage, and that can really burst you. One thing to note about Dead Bride is she doesn't actually have a lot of HP. She has good shielding but not a lot of HP. So if you target her specific parts like her mabubas, her legs, and then her ears, you'll be able to shred her pretty easy. I personally, whenever it comes to Dead Bride specifically, I only go in with 2 allies because it's easier to kill than it is to kill with 4. I don't know why, it just seems like the HP doesn't scale as crazy, and that's kind of the thing to note, that it does scale a little crazy when you have like 4 players. It's more than like if you play by yourself. So when you face off against Dead Bride, generally only go in with 2 that has some decent DPS. For Devourer, I actually go in with 3 or 4 because of his little healing drones. Again, he doesn't have a lot of HP in my opinion, so even if you don't fully heal past all his moves, you can actually just shred him if you have a good weapon. For Pyromaniac, this does require a little bit of team coordination. This took me about 10 million damage. If you can do about 9 to 10 million DPS, you can kill Pyromaniac, so that is something worth considering. And Swamp Walker is actually an absolute joke. Same with the Hangman, these 2 are actually relatively easy compared to these 2 in my opinion, and you'll be able to beat these guys simply from having like poison and electric resistance and understanding Hangman's like mechanics. For the most part, these guys are actually pretty easy to beat, and if you do need some help, feel free to come over to my Twitch. I live stream First Descendant every day. Channel's called First Descendant Fervor. I'll be happy to help some players out if I can to pretty much kill these bosses. Now next, let's talk about the module settings, and this is one of the advice that Laserbolt gave. So one of the things that we're given was to use the equipped recommended module. Now let's use this mechanic. So as you can see, the equipped recommended module is absolutely garbage. As you can see, these are all just terrible options, things that you would never use because there's no logical reason to just put randomly electric antibody, increase HP, and toxic antibody on your character. And this is the problem with recommending to do things like using the recommended modules. First off, is lazy and just straight up bad. I get it, sometimes it's hard to figure things out when it comes to modding your Descendants, and I understand that. But one thing to note is there's a lot of really solid content creators out there that actually give you build guides that's usable. Recently, Augie Saint as well as Moxie released a build video for bunnies, so it can give you a bit of direction on how to build Descendants. I'm going to be releasing an Ajax video probably later today. Vulcan's another creator who releases really solid content. There's a lot of creators out there who understand how to build Descendants, and using the equip recommended module is not only bad, but it's just straight up lazy. While I know a lot of players don't like content creators when it comes to creating like videos and stuff, just keep in mind this is our job to actually provide good content. And while there are a lot who does a lot of the bare bare minimum to get content out as quickly as possible, there are quite a few who actually respects the craft, so maybe consider checking them out. I'll link some of my favorites down in the description because they're good at what they do. Alright, last thing last, let's talk about getting through the story and why it's so important. Well, first things first, you're going to get access to higher world difficulty. As you can see here, when I pull up the map, I have access to hard mode, and what this does is infiltration operations on hard mode, and then you also get the ability to get better rewards. Now here's the importance of having this mode unlocked. As you can see now, I have access to the Haven mission, and for Ajax, getting the Void Charge Transcendent mod, which is I guess a tip in itself, is you can find mods by simply going to specific like missions in the world, which is really nice. But now I have access to higher rarity missions, and so as you can see here, we're going to change it to hard difficulty and confirm. Now you'll notice that you'll have a better acquisition chance based on the score that you get, and this is going to be really nice at giving yourself some extra benefit. And as you can see, when you select more options here, this is going to give you a higher kill score, and the higher the chance that you'll earn select rewards. This is going to be something of a challenge mode to some degree for those who really want to push for rewards. You can get these negative debuffs on you. Now these are not that crazy, if I'm being honest. I think these are actually fairly reasonable, but these are in my opinion the most important things about finishing the story, being able to get more rewards out of doing things that you're already going to be doing, like farming for your void charge. You can also change whichever like reward set you want as well, which is also really cool, so I can go for that set. So there's a lot of versatility that come with actually unlocking the story that you should probably aim to get to, so you can maybe make your farming a little bit better. And there you have it, guys. Those are 10 things, well, probably more than 10 things I wish I knew before I started playing the first Descendant. There's a lot of things you can do to get a lot of benefit out of your characters, out of your playtime, and just out of the game altogether. I'm not really a toxic content creator, but sometimes I do have to set the record straight when it comes to producing like harmful information for content, because it actually makes my job harder and it makes it harder for you guys to progress through the content, so I do have to maybe call people out here and there. Anyway, I live stream the first Descendant every single day over on my Twitch. I would love to have you guys come jump on in. The link is down in the description. And if you're interested in how to level the quickest, or you want to know how to mod 100% properly, the two videos on screen now go over just that. Check them both out.